I used to think the wildest thing an HOA could do was send you a fine for parking your own car slightly crooked on your driveway. Turns out, I was wrong. Because last Tuesday, yes, Tuesday, my HOA president, Karen, of course, decided to do something so unbelievably stupid it made history. Now, before I tell you how a suburban HOA meeting turned into an episode of FBI Fiber Crimes Unit, let me paint the scene. Picture this. A pristine neighborhood with identical mailboxes, manicured lawns, and at least 3 people who think being on the HOA board makes them local government. I live there, reluctantly, and for reasons only known to the gods of chaos, I also happen to be the neighborhood's IT guy. You know, the one people call when their Wi-Fi dies or their Ring doorbell won't stop screaming at the mailman. So on this very normal morning, I'm sipping coffee, coding, and watching my cat judge humanity from the window, when suddenly my phone explodes with alerts. The police station security network, which I helped link to the city's fiber backbone, just went offline, completely dark. Now that's bad. But what's worse? My house lost connection too, which meant the outage wasn't random. Someone had physically cut the fiber line. Now, if you're wondering who would sabotage a critical fiber connection that also feeds emergency services, I'd like to introduce you to HOA President Karen. Karen, who believes that every problem can be solved by writing a letter or cutting something she doesn't understand. Apparently, the orange fiber markers that literally said, "Do not touch municipal line," didn't faze her. She wanted the new flowers at the entrance of the subdivision just a little closer to the curb. And that meant hiring some random landscaper who, wait for it, cut straight through the primary fiber cable. The city's police station, fire substation, and half the community went offline in seconds. And guess who everyone called to fix it? Yeah, me. So while Karen was out bragging about her beautification project, I was rerouting emergency data through a backup federal network because, yes, I have clearance for that. Within 4 minutes, I had the entire system back online. 4 minutes. And in those 4 minutes, Karen had accidentally committed what might legally qualify as a federal offense. Now, here's the fun part. Instead of apologizing, Karen tried to fine me for tampering with HOA property. Oh, Karen. This story gets insane. Because what started as one severed cable turned into a full-blown federal audit, a media storm, and the most glorious HOA meltdown you've ever heard of. Let's break this down, step by step. 10 wild facts that explain how one suburban queen of chaos took on the internet and lost. You know how every neighborhood has that one person who acts like they're in charge of everything but doesn't actually understand anything? Yeah, that's Karen. Now, I've dealt with her for years. She's the kind of HOA president who thinks Wi-Fi comes from those shiny boxes on poles and believes fiber is just something people eat for digestion. So when she decided to start a beautification project near the entrance of the subdivision, I should have known something catastrophic was coming. The project's goal? To make our subdivision more welcoming. Translation? Spend HOA money on overpriced flowers while ignoring cracked sidewalks and broken streetlights. So I'm watching from my porch that morning, coffee in hand, when I see Karen standing over a group of landscapers like a drill sergeant with a Pinterest board. They're digging suspiciously close to the orange fiber conduit line, the one clearly marked City of Clearwater Communications, Do Not Touch. Now, I try to be the kind of guy who minds his business, but there are moments in life when the universe practically begs you to intervene. So I walk over and say, those markings on the ground, that's the main fiber line connecting half the police department's network. Karen squints at me like I just spoke Martian. Then she says,
and I swear this is word for word, "Oh, please, Alex, don't be dramatic. It's just a gardening cable." Gardening cable. This woman thought the bright orange city fiber trunk, the literal backbone of the local law enforcement data grid, was some kind of underground decorative wire. Now, at this point, any rational person would stop, make a call, and double-check. But Karen doesn't believe in rational. She believes in authority. Her own, specifically. So what does she do? She waves at the landscaper and says, "Go ahead and finish the trench. Ignore him. He's overreacting again." 5 minutes later, snip. Silence. I didn't even have time to put down my coffee before the police station 2 blocks away went dark. Radios, dead. Security cameras, offline. Even the fire station dispatch, which runs a backup through that same network, blinked out. And you know who's suddenly panicking? Karen. Because in less than 60 seconds, her phone starts blowing up with calls from residents complaining about lost Wi-Fi, dead landlines, and no camera feeds. She comes running up to me, waving her phone like it's an exorcism tool. "Alex, something's wrong with the internet. You need to fix it." And I just stare at her like, "Oh, something's wrong. You don't say." At that moment, my notifications explode. Alerts from the city's network monitor. Alert: communication failure. Municipal link down. That was the sound of Karen cutting through not just a fiber line, but straight through her own dignity. Now, I could have yelled. I could have told her she just took down the digital nerve center of half the district. But instead, I smiled. Because chaos like this doesn't come often. I told her calmly, "Karen, you might want to call your landscaper because you just unplugged the police." Her face went pale. Her mouth opened, and for the first time in recorded HOA history, she had nothing to say. Transition, hook. But this is just the appetizer. Because while Karen was losing her mind, I was quietly about to pull off the kind of comeback that would make the Department of Defense nod in approval.
You ever watch karma arrive with sirens? Because about an hour after Karen's fiber freedom strike, a black SUV rolled up the street. No HOA logo, no landscaping tools, just tinted windows and purpose. Turns out, when you slice through an active federal network line, it doesn't just cause internet problems. It triggers an automatic incident flag at Homeland Security. That's right, Karen's war on neighborhood aesthetics had officially gone national. By the time she realized the SUV wasn't there to deliver her Amazon packages, 2 federal tech inspectors were already knee-deep in the trench she'd dug. One of them looked up and said, "Ma'am, did you notice anyone tampering with the fiber here?" Karen tried to play dumb, of course. "Oh, I just saw some kids, maybe a raccoon." Except, and this is my favorite part, the line had her fingerprints on it. Literal, physical fingerprints. See, when she went on her little crusade, she didn't wear gloves. And when the tech swabbed the cut casing, guess whose HOA-issued manicure popped up under the ultraviolet scanner? Yep, Miss Beige Authority herself. Meanwhile, I was sipping iced coffee on my porch like a retired Bond villain watching the sequel write itself. The officers took notes, the feds collected evidence, and Karen's empire of control suddenly looked a lot less HOA and a lot more FBI. But wait, the best part? She still thought she could talk her way out of it. And her next move? Oh, it was a masterclass in suburban self-destruction. So the next morning, Karen decided she was going to explain everything to the authorities, because apparently when you just committed an act of federal-level cable vandalism, the best strategy is to double down with confidence and a latte. She strutted up to the officers outside the police station, yes, the same station she knocked offline the day before, holding her clipboard like a VIP invitation. And she says, "I was just trying to enforce HOA landscaping codes. The box violates the community's visual harmony." Now, I swear to you, the officer blinked like he was trying to reboot his brain manually.
Ma'am, did you cut fiber optics connected to law enforcement service? Karen, without missing a beat, well, maybe the police should follow HOA guidelines. Somewhere in Washington, an FBI agent probably sneezed from sheer disbelief. The officers exchanged that look, the one that says, "This lady's about to become a case study." Then they calmly explained that cutting through federal infrastructure wasn't community maintenance. It was a potential Class C felony. But the punchline? Karen actually started arguing the bylaws. She pulled out the HOA rule book and started reading Section 4, Paragraph 2, as if aesthetically displeasing equipment could legally override a Department of Homeland Security fiber line. At that point, I almost felt bad. Almost. Because while Karen was performing her Suburban TED Talk on property uniformity, the feds were quietly drafting a formal incident report, one that had her name, address, and HOA title on the front page. When the city's police station went offline, the whole neighborhood basically entered panic mode. Radio's dead, dispatch silent, and Karen? She's standing there clutching her phone like she's trying to will the Wi-Fi back through sheer HOA authority. Meanwhile, I'm watching alerts roll across my laptop faster than Karen sends complaint emails. The system's flashing municipal fiber outage critical in bright red. And I know what that means. The line she cut wasn't just neighborhood data, it was part of a high-security public service grid. Now here's something Karen never knew. I do more than fix people's routers. I consult part-time for the city's IT department, which means I've got credentials, contacts, and access to backup routing systems. Translation? I'm about to do something no one in HOA history has ever done. Reroute a police station from my living room. So I log in to the secondary access node. Every warning light is screaming at me. This kind of reroute usually takes a full team with authorization layers, but we designed it to trigger during emergencies. And guess what? Karen's landscaping project just became one. I hit the bypass protocol, the command line fills with code, my CPU fan kicks on, and right there on my screen, routing traffic through Federal Backup Network. Status, pending. Status, active. Bam! Just like that, I rerouted the entire police communication grid through a federal failover system, all while Karen is standing outside arguing with a landscaper about who's paying for the hole. Within 4 minutes, I had the city's network stabilized. 4 minutes! That's less time than it takes Karen to lecture someone about trash can placement. Now, normally, this kind of reroute triggers a system log at the federal level, notifying oversight admins that someone accessed the backup, which is fine, because I was cleared to do it. But here's the kicker. Those same system logs also record the original cause of the outage. And guess whose name was on the HOA permit that authorized that beautification dig? Yep, Karen Mitchell. At that exact moment, somewhere deep inside a federal data center, an automated alert was already flagging her project as the initiating source of municipal fiber disruption. That's government speak for someone's about to get a phone call. I step outside, calm as a monk, while Karen's pacing in circles, screaming into her Bluetooth headset. She spots me and rushes over. "Alex, what did you do? Why are there police cars driving toward the entrance?" I say, "Karen, those aren't for me. They're coming to check on the outage you caused." Her jaw literally drops. She looks down the street, sees 2 officers step out of their cruiser, and starts mumbling about property improvements. The landscaper beside her just looks like he wants to disappear into the mulch. The officer approaches, and before she can even speak, he says, "Ma'am, we have reports that your project cut through a municipal line connected to our department. We need to take some details." And you could practically hear the HOA power drain out of her voice. But here's the real irony. While she was fumbling through excuses, the city IT director called me personally to confirm that the reroute worked. He said, "Good job. We'll send someone to repair the fiber, but you kept emergency services online. You saved us hours." I thanked him, and then, with the kind of satisfaction only a neighborhood tech guy can feel, I looked back at Karen and said, "See, 4 minutes. You might want to write that in your next HOA newsletter." But Karen's ego doesn't die easy. Because when someone that entitled gets caught, they don't apologize. They double down. And her next move? Let's just say it went from stupid to legally dangerous.
If there's one thing I've learned about HOA presidents named Karen, it's that logic doesn't live in their house. It just rents a room, and it's constantly late on rent. So after the police officers finished their initial report, you'd think she'd go quiet, maybe issue an apology, maybe even thank me for saving the neighborhood's digital spine. No, not this Karen. While the fiber techs and cops were still assessing the damage, she strutted up to me like she was walking into a courtroom she thought she owned. "Alex," she says, her voice all condescending sugar, "we need to discuss your unauthorized tampering with HOA infrastructure." Now let's pause there. She just called the city's municipal fiber connection HOA infrastructure. That's like saying the Pentagon belongs to your neighborhood watch. I blinked. "You mean the cable you had cut?" She nodded, dead serious. "Yes, you should have asked for board approval before rerouting anything. That cable was on HOA property." Somewhere, a law book spontaneously combusted. I wanted to laugh, but the officers were standing right there, and I didn't want to get arrested for public sarcasm. So I just asked, "Karen, do you know what the words Federal Communication Line mean?" She frowned. "It means it runs through our community." It was like arguing with a potato wearing a power blazer. Now the lead officer stepped in, clearly trying not to smirk. "Ma'am," he said, "what Mr. Evans did actually prevented a public safety crisis. We've already confirmed his reroute was authorized by the city." Karen blinked twice. "You mean he's allowed to do that?" "Yes, ma'am, and we have a report stating your landscaping crew caused the initial disruption." If you've ever seen someone realize they might be the villain halfway through a movie, that was her face. But instead of accepting it, she doubled down like a gambler on a losing streak. "Well, if anyone's responsible, it's the contractor. The HOA didn't know what they were cutting." The officer flipped a page on his clipboard. "Actually, the permit lists you as the approving signatory." And just like that, silence. A silence so pure it could heal broken Wi-Fi. Now, for anyone keeping score, she had cut a municipal fiber line, disrupted a police network, tried to fine me for fixing it, and was now arguing with the cops about property boundaries she didn't even understand. The landscaper finally cracked and said, "She told us to dig there." Karen whipped around like a malfunctioning robot. "Excuse me?" "Yeah," he said, shrugging. "You pointed at the flags and said, 'Go ahead. Those are just markers.'" At that moment, Karen's HOA crown officially fell off her head. The police officer sighed, took her statement, and said, "We'll be forwarding this to the city's legal department for review." You could practically see the color drain from her face, like someone hit delete on her confidence. Now, any normal person would take this as a cue to back off, maybe lawyer up quietly. But Karen doesn't do quiet. She does damage control by chaos. Because less than 24 hours later, I got an email from the HOA board. Subject line, "Urgent. Complaint against Alex Evans for unauthorized access to network equipment." Oh, it gets better.
If Karma had an email address, this is the moment it hit reply all. The day after the whole fiber fiasco, I woke up to an HOA email that could only have been written by someone who's never met reality. Subject, complaint, unauthorized access to HOA infrastructure by Alex Evans. It was a glorious 1,200-word essay of delusion written by none other than Karen herself, complete with bold text, bullet points, and phrases like gross violation of community trust. She wrote that I had hacked into a private network without board consent and endangered HOA data, which is hilarious because our HOA doesn't even have data, unless you count Karen's spreadsheet of whose grass is 0.4 inches too tall. Anyway, she CC'd the entire HOA board, the city council, and I wish I were making this up, the local police department. So she sent her formal complaint about a federal reroute to the same department whose connection I just saved. Chef's kiss. Now, I wasn't going to respond right away. I figured the situation would collapse under its own stupidity, but then I noticed something. She also CC'd the city's IT department, the very same one that authorized me to perform the reroute. And that's when I knew this was about to become the funniest chain reaction in digital history. I opened my laptop, grabbed some popcorn, and just watched. Within an hour, the reply all notifications started popping like popcorn kernels. First one came from the city IT director. Hi, Karen. Alex Evans is a registered contractor with verified clearance. He followed standard emergency reroute protocol as defined under Municipal Code 14.7. Your project, however, violated City Fiber Ordinance Section 3.2 by cutting an active conduit. Then, from Police Technical Division, we confirmed that Mr. Evans' intervention restored our dispatch connectivity. Please ensure HOA construction follows utility marking procedures. Future interference may result in criminal penalties. Criminal penalties! By this point, the HOA board's inbox was blowing up like a group chat on fire. Replies were flying in. One board member wrote, "Wait, we cut the police line?" Another said, "Why wasn't this discussed in last month's budget meeting?" Karen, bless her fragile ego, tried to reply with damage control. "I believe this is being exaggerated. The contractor was told not to touch anything." And then, the IT director again, the orange markers reading, "Do not touch, municipal line," generally indicate importance. Boom! Mic drop. Now, somewhere in the chaos, someone must have accidentally forwarded the entire thread to the city attorney's office, because 2 hours later, the final reply came through. Please preserve all related communications for investigation. Liability assessment is in progress. You can almost hear the uh-oh echo across the HOA office. Karen tried to delete the original email chain, but once the city's legal office is looped in, you can't just Control-Z your way out of consequences. The thread became a permanent record. And the irony? The HOA server uses a shared Gmail workspace, meaning I could see every reply because I was still on the CC list. Watching that thread unfold in real time was like binge-watching Karma with subtitles. Transition, or hook. But the best part wasn't the emails. It was what came next, when the city audit team showed up in person to review the site of the incident. And let's just say, they didn't come empty-handed.
You ever see a person go from, "I run this community," to, "Please don't arrest me," in under 5 minutes? That's exactly what happened when the audit team rolled up. 2 days after the email apocalypse, 3 city officials and 1 police investigator showed up at the neighborhood entrance, the exact spot where Karen's beautification project had turned into a broadband crime scene. They weren't wearing smiles. They were wearing badges and clipboards. I was out mowing my lawn, purely coincidental timing, of course, when the convoy pulled up. Karen, dressed in her best "I'm innocent" cardigan, rushed to greet them like she was hosting a brunch. "Good morning, officers. I'm so glad you're here to clear up this misunderstanding." Oh, Karen, always assuming she's the one doing the clearing up. The audit team, a woman named Linda, wasn't having it. She flipped open her tablet and started scanning through notes. "Mrs. Mitchell, we're here to inspect the reported fiber damage and confirm the responsible party." Karen smiled like a toddler trying to lie about eating crayons. "Oh, it was just a minor landscaping issue." Linda raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, your permit says beautification of entrance area.
It doesn't authorize excavation within 10 feet of municipal infrastructure. Karen blinked. Well, the contractor didn't. The contractor, Linda interrupted, was following your instruction according to his statement. You could practically hear the doon-doon-doon sound effect from Law and Order. Meanwhile, I'm standing by the curb pretending to adjust my mower height, watching like it's a free Netflix show. The landscaper, who'd clearly had enough, points straight at the ground and says, "That's where we cut. She told us it was fine." The auditor crouches, pulls up the orange conduit, and traces the bright, clean slice, like a surgeon revealing the smoking gun. Linda looks up and says flatly, "This is a municipal communications line. You're aware that damaging one can carry a federal penalty, correct?" Karen stammers something about not knowing and the flags weren't clear. So Linda shows her a photo. Bright orange marker, huge black text, "Do not touch, municipal fiber." Karen's face goes pale like she just saw the HOA budget evaporate. The officer next to Linda adds, "We'll be filing an incident report and recommending a fine for unauthorized interference with municipal property." Karen immediately goes into lawyer mode, the kind that starts with zero evidence and maximum desperation. Well, technically, this entire subdivision is private land, so that cable was on. Linda cuts her off again. The easement agreement gives the city full right-of-way access. You signed it. Twice. Boom. Right there, on her own HOA signature, was the nail in her self-made coffin. Now, for a brief moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered that just 48 hours earlier, she'd tried to fine me for tampering with HOA property. The audit lasted another hour. They measured, photographed, documented, the full bureaucratic treatment. Before leaving, Linda turned to me and said, "Mr. Evans, thank you for your quick response that day. You saved us a lot of trouble." I smiled. Just doing my civic duty. Karen was silent the whole time. No clipboard, no attitude, just the faint sound of her empire crumbling under the weight of actual law. By sunset, word had spread across the neighborhood. The HOA queen bee had been officially grounded. Transition/hook. But if you think that audit ended the chaos, think again. Because when people like Karen lose power, they don't surrender. They scheme. And her next move? Oh, she tried to flip the entire HOA against me.
You'd think after getting roasted by federal auditors, most people would lay low, maybe take a break from community drama, maybe reflect on life choices. But not Karen. No. Karen doesn't retreat. She regroups. A few days after the audit, the HOA group chat, yes, the same one that mostly existed for people to argue about trash bins, suddenly went quiet. No memes, no messages, no passive-aggressive reminders about lawn edging. Just silence, which in HOA language means one thing: plotting. Then, that Friday night, a mysterious email appeared in my inbox. Subject line, "Special HOA meeting, urgent. Vote." No details, no context, just the phrase, "Board discussion regarding community trust." Oh, I knew exactly what that meant. Karen wasn't done with me. She was coming for my reputation. So I showed up at the clubhouse. 8 people were there. 5 board members, a few residents, and Karen sitting dead center like she was hosting a reality show. "Thank you all for attending," she said, doing her best serious leader voice. "As you know, recent events have caused turmoil in our community, and certain individuals have taken actions that may have endangered our HOA's image." She looked straight at me. You could feel the tension, like someone just plugged a toaster into a thunderstorm. I leaned back, calm as ever. "You mean fixing the network you broke?" She ignored that.
Tonight, we'll be voting on a motion to temporarily suspend Mr. Evans from all community committees, pending review of his conduct. Now, let me clarify something. I wasn't even on a committee. The only thing I'd ever volunteered for was testing the new gate cameras. But that's the HOA for you. They'll invent a position just so they can fire you from it. One board member, Susan, frowned. What exactly are we reviewing him for? Karen clasped her hands dramatically. Misuse of HOA authority, unauthorized access to restricted systems, and violation of the Community Code of Ethics. I swear I could hear the imaginary handcuffs clicking in her mind. So I pulled out my phone, scrolled, and projected the city's official email chain onto the clubhouse TV, the one where the IT director literally said, "I saved the police network." I read aloud. Alex Evans acted under emergency protocol with verified clearance. Then I looked up. Any questions? You could hear a pin drop. Karen tried to recover. That's out of context. Susan shot back, how? It's literally in writing. One by one, board members started backing off. One even whispered, Karen, maybe we should move on. But she wasn't letting go. We need to think about appearances. The city is watching us now. Our HOA can't afford this embarrassment. I smiled. You're right, which is why maybe the president who caused the federal investigation shouldn't be talking about appearances. Boom. The crowd murmured. The balance of power shifted like a seesaw. The treasurer finally stood up. I motion that this meeting be adjourned until legal clarification. There's no evidence Alex did anything wrong. Motion passed, 5 votes to 1. Guess who the 1 was? Karen gathered her papers like a villain exiting the courtroom. She didn't even look at me as she left, which was fine because I was too busy trying not to grin like a supervillain who just hacked karma itself. Transition or hook. But that wasn't the end, not even close. Because when you humiliate someone like Karen in public, they don't walk away, they escalate. And her next move? Oh, she went national.
Every HOA story hits a point where it stops being neighborhood drama and turns into public entertainment. For me, that moment came when Karen decided to call the local news. Apparently, after losing her attempted HOA coup, she needed a new audience, one that didn't already know she'd committed an unintentional act of federal vandalism. So she did what every delusional suburban monarch does when cornered. She called the media and tried to rewrite history. I first found out when my phone started blowing up with texts that said, "Dude, you're on Channel 8." I flipped on the TV, and there she was, standing at the neighborhood entrance in front of the exact flower bed that started all this, holding a microphone like she was announcing world peace. Today, our peaceful community was disrupted by a local resident who took it upon himself to interfere with HOA operations and city systems, she said, sounding like a politician who just learned how microphones work. Behind her, the HOA sign looked crooked, probably karma's way of fact-checking her in real time. She painted herself as a hero who was restoring order after a reckless tech enthusiast caused confusion in the neighborhood. I nearly choked on my coffee. Because apparently, fixing a broken police network and saving emergency communications now made me a reckless tech enthusiast. Now here's the kicker. Karen clearly thought this would stay a local puff piece, but the station posted the clip online, and the internet did what the internet does best. The comments section obliterated her. People started fact-checking her claims within minutes. One viewer wrote, "Lady, you cut a city fiber line and you're blaming the guy who fixed it?" Another said, "This is like blaming a firefighter for water damage." Then came the memes. Oh, the glorious memes.
Someone screenshotted her quote, "I didn't realize it was a serious cable," and captioned it with, "When you think 911 runs on Bluetooth." By the next morning, the clip had over 200,000 views. Local blogs picked it up. Reddit threads were roasting her like a marshmallow at a tech convention. But it gets better, because the same police department she knocked offline, they posted a thank you note to me on their official Facebook page. Special thanks to local IT consultant Alex Evans for his rapid action restoring our communication network during last week's outage. You could almost hear the sound of Karen's PR campaign imploding. By noon, reporters were reaching out to the city asking for clarification. The city spokesperson simply said, "The outage was caused by unauthorized landscaping conducted under HOA approval." That's bureaucratic language for Karen did it. The best part? The news station followed up with a correction segment titled "Clarifying the Fiber Incident." And they ran side-by-side footage, my reroute logs and Karen's on-camera confusion. It wasn't just damage control, it was digital justice. By the end of the day, Karen's face had become the neighborhood meme template. The same woman who once fined people for leaving trash cans out too long was now trending as #FiberKaren. And me? I didn't have to lift a finger. The internet did all the heavy lifting.
The morning after the #FiberKaren saga hit full viral orbit, I woke up to something truly special sitting in my mailbox. An envelope marked legal notice. For a second I thought, finally, the city's sending her the fine. But nope, it was addressed to me, from Karen. I took it inside, brewed my coffee, and opened it carefully, because you never know what kind of delusional energy is sealed inside HOA stationery. Inside was a beautifully formatted cease and desist letter, except instead of being written by an actual lawyer, it was signed by Karen herself. No law firm header, no attorney name, just her signature and the HOA logo in Comic Sans. It started with, "Dear Mr. Evans, you are hereby ordered to immediately stop spreading misinformation, defaming the HOA, and unlawfully accessing secure systems." I nearly spit out my coffee laughing. Apparently, she believed she could legally order me to stop telling the truth, the same truth that was already confirmed by the city, the police, and, oh yeah, national broadcast news. She accused me of slandering community leadership, violating data privacy, and my personal favorite, digital vigilantism. That one deserves a movie. Now, most people would panic when they get something labeled legal notice, but I've worked in IT long enough to know the difference between a lawsuit and a tantrum written in Microsoft Word. So instead of calling my lawyer, I called my printer. I printed out every official statement, the city audit, the police commendation, and the news correction segment and stapled them to her letter. On top, I wrote one sentence in Sharpie: "Cease and desist sending nonsense." Then I slid it under her door. By the next afternoon, I got another email, this time from the real city attorney's office. They had received a copy of Karen's legal document because, of course, she sent one to them too. The email was short and brutal. "Mrs. Mitchell's cease and desist letter has no legal basis. Please disregard. Our department is reviewing her actions for potential obstruction of investigation." Translation: she just tried to use fake legal threats in an active municipal case. Within hours, word spread across the HOA chat again. Screenshots of her legal notice started circulating, and the comments were savage. Someone wrote, "Did she just serve a cease and desist using a clip art logo?" Another added, "Imagine thinking Microsoft Word gives you subpoena power." By sunset, the city issued an official fine against the HOA. $18,000 for municipal damage and unauthorized infrastructure interference. Karen tried to blame the landscaper again, but his lawyer wasn't having it. He submitted the signed work order with her name right on top. That's when the HOA board finally snapped. An emergency vote was held that same evening. The motion?
Immediate removal of Karen Mitchell from the position of HOA president due to gross negligence. Unanimous. 10 out of 10. And just like that, the reign of Karen ended. Not with a speech, not with dignity, but a paper trail of bad grammar and Comic Sans legal threats. Transition, or hook. But just when the neighborhood thought peace was restored, the plot thickened, because the feds hadn't closed the case yet, and the next letter in the mail wasn't for me.
You know that eerie calm that settles over a neighborhood right before something legendary happens? That's what it felt like the morning Karen's luck finally ran out. 3 weeks had passed since the Comic Sans legal incident. The HOA was under temporary management, peace had returned, and even the neighborhood squirrels seemed more relaxed. But Karen, she'd gone radio silent. No group emails, no rants, not even her usual reminder about keeping recycling bins out of sight. That silence should have been my clue. She was probably planning something, but instead, it turned out someone else was planning something for her. It was a Tuesday morning, the same day of the week she'd cut the fiber, poetic timing if you ask me, when 2 black SUVs pulled up in front of her house. They weren't the kind with tinted windows and bass-heavy speakers. These were government grade. A few neighbors peeked through their blinds. One whispered, "Is that the feds?" I just smiled. Probably. 2 agents stepped out, crisp suits, badges glinting. They knocked on Karen's door. You could feel the collective neighborhood heartbeat stop. Karen answered, wearing her usual "I'm not guilty" smile. The agents were polite, but direct. "Mrs. Mitchell, we're here regarding the municipal communication outage from earlier this month. May we come in?" Now, to be clear, they weren't arresting her. But in suburbia, having federal investigators show up at your front porch is basically the same thing, socially. They spoke with her for a good 20 minutes. One of the agents was taking notes while the other scanned paperwork. From my porch, I could see her hands flailing like she was directing invisible traffic. Then I saw the moment her smile broke when the agent handed her a formal citation for obstruction and negligence under municipal communication laws. Nothing criminal, yet, but it was serious enough to require a court appearance and could lead to civil penalties. Her voice carried halfway down the street. "But I didn't know it was a city cable!" One of the agents calmly said, "That information was printed on the cable, ma'am." And that was it. Karen, the self-declared queen of HOA righteousness, stood there speechless, not because she was being accused, but because for the first time in her life, someone higher on the power ladder was telling her no. They left her with documents, a deadline, and a look that said, "We've seen this movie before." As the SUVs pulled away, a few neighbors came outside, pretending to water plants. One whispered, "Guess the beautification project's officially over." I couldn't help but grin. Yeah, it's been terminated, with extreme prejudice. By sunset, the whole neighborhood knew. Screenshots of her standing at the door talking to federal agents spread faster than a new HOA fine. Someone even added the Law and Order sound effect to the clip. Now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't celebrating her humiliation. Okay, maybe a little. But the truth was, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. For once, accountability had shown up on time and in the suit. Karen spent the next week pretending everything was fine. She walked her dog, waved awkwardly, and acted like federal agents hadn't just visited her front yard. But everyone knew. The empire had fallen. And me? I didn't need to say a word. I just fixed my Wi-Fi, closed my laptop, and enjoyed the rare silence of an HOA without tyranny. But we're not done yet, because every story needs closure, and this one ends with a final twist that not even I saw coming.
Every neighborhood legend deserves a proper ending, and in ours, that ending came sealed in a white envelope marked Final Determination, City of Clearwater. It showed up on a Thursday, 3 weeks after the federal visit. By then, Karen had gone into full damage control mode. New haircut, new Facebook posts about community unity, and even a fresh set of Vote Karen 2025 flyers, as if her HOA presidency was some kind of national campaign. Spoiler, it wasn't. The letter wasn't addressed to me, but the universe has a funny way of making sure everyone sees poetic justice in real time. When the mail carrier dropped it off, Karen wasn't home. So naturally, curiosity and mild civic duty made me notice it sticking halfway out of her box. I didn't touch it, of course, but I didn't have to. By sunset, word spread. Someone on the HOA board leaked the contents faster than a sprinkler pipe in July. The city's investigation was done. The official verdict? Negligent interference with municipal communication infrastructure resulting in public disruption. Penalty? Personal fine of $8,500, permanent note on HOA's municipal record, and mandatory training for all board members on public utilities compliance. Translation? Karen had to pay, literally and figuratively, for cutting the cable she'd once called just a gardening wire. When she found out, she called an emergency HOA meeting, trying one last desperate attempt to spin it as a learning opportunity. Let's look at this as a new beginning. Mistakes were made, but we've all grown as a community. I swear if irony had a sound, it would have been the slow clap that came from the back of the room. Because for once, the board didn't nod along. They just looked tired. Tired of the chaos, tired of the fines, tired of the Karenarchy. Then the treasurer, same one who'd motioned to adjourn her coup weeks earlier, stood up and said, "Actually, Karen, this letter isn't about growth. It's about accountability." He handed her a second envelope, this one stamped HOA decision. It was official. She was being permanently removed from the board, barred from holding any leadership role for 5 years, and required to pay back the HOA's portion of the city fine. Karen's jaw dropped like she just realized the Wi-Fi password had changed. Forever. She tried to speak, but for once, no one was listening. One by one, neighbors stood up and left the meeting. No yelling, no applause, just quiet relief. And there it was, the moment every resident had secretly dreamed of. The Karen era was over. When I walked out, the sunset hit the new fiber junction box, freshly repaired, gleaming in the light. I couldn't help but laugh. All that drama for flowers. Later that week, the city installed a small plaque near the entrance to mark the infrastructure upgrade. It read, "Dedicated to the resilience of community connectivity." The irony? Karen had unintentionally become part of local history, just not the way she wanted. The story spread online again. HOA president fined after cutting police network. And right there in the comments, someone summed it up perfectly. Never mess with the neighborhood IT guy. They weren't wrong. So what did I learn from all this? That in HOA land, the laws of physics don't apply, only the laws of karma. Because no matter how deep someone digs themselves a hole, they'll always find the fiber line. And that, my friends, is how one woman's quest to beautify a neighborhood turned into a masterclass on how to detonate your own reputation in 4K. I mean, let's be honest, you can't script this stuff. One minute you're planting petunias, the next minute you're accidentally taking down the police station and arguing with federal agents about property boundaries. It's basically The Office meets CSI fiber optics. Now you'd think stories like this are rare, but if HOA Wars has taught us anything, it's that power plus petty equals pure chaos. Every neighborhood has its own mini-dictator, the person who quotes bylaws like scripture but can't read a warning label. Karen just took it to Olympic levels. But here's the plot twist. This wasn't really about cables or fines. It was about control, the illusion that a clipboard and a title make you untouchable. Spoiler alert, the universe has a reset button called accountability, and sometimes it looks a lot like an $8,500 fine and a revoked presidency. And to every viewer out there who survived their own HOA nightmare, the passive-aggressive notes, the endless violation emails, the people measuring your grass with a ruler, remember this story the next time they threaten to escalate. Because if Karen can cut through city fiber and still end up trending on Reddit, maybe, just maybe, your trash can placement isn't the end of civilization. Cue dramatic narrator voice. In a world where Wi-Fi is fragile and egos are unlimited, one man rerouted justice through a federal backup network. If you enjoyed this saga, if you laughed, screamed, or just whispered, "Finally," under your breath, hit that like button harder than Karen hit that shovel. Drop a comment below with your own HOA horror story, because you know I read 'em, and the next viral tale could be yours. And of course, if you're new here, welcome to @HOA Wars, where we turn suburban chaos into cinematic justice. We post new episodes every week, filled with real stories, unreal people, and the universal truth that common sense is not part of most HOA bylaws. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the rebellion against neighborhood nonsense, one sarcastic breakdown at a time. Because remember, in this neighborhood, karma travels at gigabit speed, and it's always online.